All right, to Wall Street now. One day after the Dow tumbled more than 800 points, it landed in the red again, this time by just the tiniest of margins. The closing bell rang just moments ago. So let's take a look at our interactive stock market heat map. This is brought to you by FinViz, showing the top 500 stocks. And as the budget bill heads to the Senate, investors kind of digest what it means for the federal deficit. So CBS News contributor JD Durkin breaks it all down. He's live from the New York Stock Exchange. Hi there, JD. Let's talk about the stock market today, the gains. Also, let's look at the bond market, though. Things look a little shakier there. So what's going on?
Yeah, that's right, Jules. We'll start with the equity side of things. After a notable sell-off yesterday, things kind of flat to the downside today. Kind of comparable story there for the S&P 500, the Dow, the tech-heavy NASDAQ as well. In the so-called Magnificent Seven stocks, we saw Tesla and Google outperform, but we did see only 2 of the 11 sectors of the S&P 500 in positive territory. But you're right, because arguably down here on Wall Street, the big story of the week is the Treasury market. It is what the bond market is telling the U.S. government about how concerned investors are, not just of the ongoing borrowing that the federal government needs to do, but whether or not the government really even has the ability to pay off the interest on all of the debt that it has. And Jules, you know as well as I do, my friend, this is going on just within a week or so after that Moody's downgrade following years ago comparable moves from S&P and Fitch. It's going on the same week that the budget reconciliation bill is passing, which the CBO has said would add about another $2 trillion or so onto the national debt over the course of the next few decades. People here on Wall Street like to say the bond market cannot be fooled, and it is once again flashing some of those warning signs. But overall, I think the market is still in wait-and-see territory. A big inflation print set to hit the wires next Friday. That's PCE, and of course, the big one for stocks, NVIDIA earnings next week. It's a favorite event down here on Wall Street, Jules.
All right, we'll pay attention. Let's talk about Trump's big crypto dinner. It's happening tonight. He's going to dine with the top investors in his meme coin. So it hit, and we know that Bitcoin actually hit an all-time high. So what are you hearing from investors about all of this?
I'm glad you started with the Bitcoin, because it hit all-time high at more than $111,000 for one Bitcoin. That is an astronomical figure given the kind of run-up that we've seen in Bitcoin over the last few years. That's on the more legitimate side of crypto, if I could say that. Kind of on the other side where we're kind of blurring the lines between personal interests, political interests, business interests for the president, for his family, for the office of the presidency. We're expecting a gathering of 220 of the largest holders of the so-called Trump meme coin. You just heard from Nicole there on Capitol Hill a short time ago. As a reminder, this was rolled out before inauguration. It peaked. It then plummeted. The president has actively promoted it while he's sitting president, by the way. And this is sort of blurring the lines between the ethical fog of how this White House is going about some of these accusations of self-enrichment. I'd like to add to Nicole's reporting, if I can, because you heard there from a few concerned Democrats. But it's not just Democrats. You got concerned Republicans as well. Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, she's a big Bitcoin fan. She has said it gives me pause. And Lisa Murkowski of Alaska said, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to charge people to come into the U.S. Capitol and take a tour. So certainly a bit of bipartisan, at least head scratching over the expected crypto dinner at the White House tonight, Jules.
Okay, I'm going to put your math skills to the test now. Trump's new tax bill giving newborns $1,000 in what they're calling Trump accounts. Okay, given that, how would those accounts work? And if we're talking about a baby born this year, how much might that $1,000 be worth when they turn 18?
Yeah, Jules, when you actually look at the financials of this, I would argue it's not that dissimilar from a lot of existing savings accounts on the map. It actually reminds me of what's called the 529 college plan. But how it would work essentially, hypothetically, $1,000 from the federal government at the time of birth. And you're trying to take advantage of compound interest, which people here on Wall Street are fond of saying is the 8th wonder of the world. $1,000 invested, assuming a 10% annual return, which is about what the S&P 500 historically brings in. That gives you $5,600 or so off that $1,000 after 18 years. But the advantage to parents is that they can actually contribute $5,000 every year off that $1,000 from the federal government. That, after 18 years, gives you almost $30,000, $28,000 or so to be exact. This has really been spearheaded by Republican Senator Ted Cruz. A lot of enthusiasm in this to try and get across the border here, or across the kind of the wall here for the House of Representatives yesterday. A lot of uncertainty, Jules, whether or not this will pass the Senate, but certainly gives the Trump administration something fun to talk about in the interim.
All right, you're all over it. JD Durkin, thanks so much, JD. Good to see you.